Hey everyone. Now, episode 5, Obi-Wan Kenobi, with our amazing filmmaker Eduardo Organista. Mac and Anabelle are back with us again. Episode 5, obviously much better than episode 4. Mac, I'm gonna have you go. Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, episode 5 is the best episode so far. Period. I don't know if it's even close. I mean, Darth Vader was yamming, which is slang for tearing stuff up. Hayden Christensen, first of all, my handsome prince, is back on the screen, so I'm happy for this. I'm so glad they didn't CGI them too young. Like, it's okay. Again, this is what we were talking about the last review we had. It's like, this is a fantasy story. You are telling your audience to suspend their disbelief and to invest into this story. You are providing a narrative and a theme. You are trying to tell a story. So it's okay if it's not realistic. Video games don't need to be realistic. TV shows don't need to be realistic. Even non-diegetic things that exist outside of the canonical world that you're viewing, like CGI on a character's face, doesn't have to be so sophisticated to make him look like he's 20 years younger. It doesn't have to. It can look like there's a little CGI on his face. You recognize Hayden Christensen. You've been looking at pictures of this person for the last month leading up to these episodes. So like, it's okay that he is only a little aged, even though he has his Padawan braid. Like, he looks good. It's exciting to see him and Obi-Wan going at it. Like, the training, and also that lesson was sick. It is your need for victory. Oh, your need for victory blinds you, Anakin. And he's like, shut up, Jesus. I know what I'm doing.
I do agree that was my favorite part of the episode. It was actually developing the villain, which I always like. We talked about it last time. We mentioned the Dark Knight example and the Joker. That was the only critique of it. So yeah, I really like Darth Vader here, showing us all the background, all the motivation why he does that with Obi-Wan, because he was the only person who was able to beat him. So I really loved it. And yeah, Eddie, go ahead.
The way it started, I had flashbacks being on that set and the buzz around that set when they did that. Everybody was like, "What? We're doing this? Okay, we're doing this. Great." So that was just a joy to be on that set. And I remember when we were prepping for that scene, and because we get to see the content on the wall before pretty much anybody else, and I was like, "Wait, we're coming back here? Why?" And then we started seeing the set being built. I'm like, oh, okay. And so anyway, I really enjoyed that flashback. And when they were sparring even on set, it was just so crazy to see.
Anakin, be mindful.
And it's funny because I think this scene is emblematic of like Obi-Wan maybe just seeing a spark of the problem child that Anakin is. Like, I think this is when he first kind of gets a taste of that, like, oh, okay, he's going a little hard here. What's the deal? Like, I mean, I know he's hard-headed and stuff, but he's actually being very aggressive with me. And you can see that in Obi-Wan's face, like, hey, like, chill out, and I think that's kind of like the first realization. And the fact that they were intercutting that with how the episode was progressing, I thought that was a very creative way to tell the story. And also, kind of because Vader is so expressionless because of the mask, they use that flashback to kind of inform us of what he's feeling in that moment. I thought that was a brilliant way to bridge that gap. And I didn't realize that's what they were doing with the flashback. I thought the flashback was going to play all together as one thing, and no idea that they were going to cut it that way. So that was very, very much a joy. And I know we have lots more to talk about with later, but I'll leave it at that.
It is one of the examples where it was an improvement from episode 4, where, as we talked about in episode 4, show, no exposition. Anabelle, go ahead. What do you have to say?
I completely agree with that. My favorite thing about the flashback was the way they paralleled it to the present story. I thought it was just done so well. And we'd cut to a line that Obi says in the past about how Anakin acts and his fighting technique, and then cut back to the present, and Obi-Wan is like, or Ben is like, no, he's gonna act like this. I know he is. Like, I know how he works. I know how he fights. And I was just like, that's perfect the way they would do it. Because I feel like also if you removed the flashback from this episode, it would have been so bland. Like it would have been, and it would have felt way too, there were still a couple of points that I was like, that seems a little easy or unnecessary. But if the flashback wasn't there, it would have been way too easy if Ben was just being like, oh no, he's gonna go like this. And then, especially for the viewers who don't have the continuous knowledge and remembrance of all these past films and the way Anakin acts. I think it was just a really nice way they did it. But I will say I was a little confused about when Obi-Wan turned himself in and then had his little conversation with Reba, and then all of a sudden he's back and he's going on the transport, and I was like, what? Where are you going? So that part I was kind of like, what's going on? But that being said, I also loved the reveal of Reba. I loved it. I was like, I didn't see it coming. I wouldn't have thought. So I mean, did she play dead to Anakin? Would he not be able to tell she was alive on the floor as a youngling?
That's actually a really good question, because the Order 66 occurred, but the Inquisitor program didn't start immediately. Like, they weren't pulling Inquisitors.
So where did she go?
That's a great question. This is the beauty of this massive canonical universe, is like, when did this happen?
Right. And then the scenes where like she's a youngling, they made it look like she was staring him in the eyes. And I was like, he would have killed her. He would have immediately killed her and known he killed her, and then, walked out of there, and that's it. Everyone would have been gone. So, there were things that I like to just, let the past be and kind of forget the nuances of it. But at the same time, I was like,
Go ahead, Eddie.
I was just gonna say I have like this. There's a shot that I'm surprised I didn't use that I saw when Anakin stabs her. Stabs the
youngling.
Yeah, and there's like this interesting recognition in Anakin's face. Like he stabs him, and then you can see Anakin literally go like I think he like.
Oh, he knows.
He
he
just kind of looks at her like, oh, you could be useful. Like there's something like in the Force or something that seems like he knows that she could be useful, but leaves her for dead. Because I think he knows that he didn't kill her. And so I mean, that would have been an interesting shot to add. I don't know if what I saw was just a little bit out of context, or if they just, went around that. But I thought that was a very interesting thing, because they lingered a little bit on Anakin's face as he stabbed her, or just after, and like, okay, you're not dead, you're strong, type of thing. I could use you. So it was that kind of look that he gave her. So anyway, sorry, Raj, go for it.
Oh no, it's fine. That was quite interesting thing. I feel that this part where where they talk about between the walls, and I love that scene. The acting was really good, and I felt the writing here was good, because I mean, like, oh, you got something right at least. So when he was,
it's a different writer. It was Kelly and someone else. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, I felt here like how he was, because how he was able to connect the dots of, oh, how did you know Anakin was Darth Vader? And this is something we talked about, I think, in the first episode review. I remember someone mentioned it, like, oh, how did she know about it? And
I said, be patient.
Yeah, it made sense now. I was like, okay, she needed to reveal it. I get it.
So yeah, Matt, go ahead.
I'm ready to talk about Darth Vader peeling that ship like an egg. I don't know if y'all saw that or not, but that's what I was talking about. Like, you don't get away from someone who has the Force. You're not going anywhere. Like, size matters not. You think your boosters that are moving you through 3D space mean anything to the Force? Transcend space and time? No, you're not going anywhere. Get on the ground. He grabbed it, which was already cool, and I was like, all right, this is what I was waiting for. Somebody to grab it. And then whoever wrote this was like, make him grab it and then times it by 30. And they're like, what does that mean? And like, I don't know. Ask the artist. And they went in there and they drew him peeling it like a banana. Like this is where Star Wars is comfortable for me right here. This makes a lot of sense. Everyone who reads the Star Wars novels is like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And then this happens, and I was like, oh, get him out of there! All you can do is scream. Like, this is crazy. I like the slip. This is like, the slip is cool because Anakin, like Obi-Wan just told you this in the flashback. Like, yeah, your need for victory will blind you. Like, you're so focused on getting your result and then winning and defeating your enemy that you let things slip through. You make small mistakes. Like, this was one of those obvious mistakes he made. If everyone was on that ship, they'd be dead. He would have ripped them all out of the ship and then played drums with their heads. Like, it would have been terrible, but they didn't.
I feel that with the scene right after when he fights with Reba, and it was kind of mimicking him fighting with Obi-Wan, because again, he could have just killed her right at the beginning, but he then gave her the sword, and you're like, oh, you have to fight and all of that. So I think that's a hint that Reba's gonna be alive, and she's gonna have a role in the future that is probably gonna be quite interesting. And that was obvious from when she caught Lola, and I was like, okay, something's gonna happen. Like, they're not gonna put that scene and be like, oh, that's it. No, we know something's gonna happen. Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Eddie.
No, you go ahead, please.
I'm gonna change the subject though. So if you want to add on.
No, I was just gonna say that the fight between Reba and Vader was perfect because, like, the fact that he didn't have to use the lightsaber just shows the dominance that he has. And also, I think he was actively learning from his mistake with Obi-Wan from that duel from the past. I think he was like taking it out on Reba, obviously, that loss that humiliating loss of like being fooled right then and there, and then like just taking it out on Reba by just literally insulting her by not using the lightsaber and instead taking hers and splitting it in half and then giving her a half a piece back. Like, that is the most smack in the face Vader could do to one of his subordinates before he kills them. Like, it was just so perfect. And during that scene, actually, Chung Hoon, the DP, man, there were times where I guess he wanted to get specific shots done, and they gave him the full on camera, and he would be rolling around, like, I think one time almost in like his slippers, just kind of like, just I mean, he's a beast. He was fantastic. And he was hand holding the camera, and he loved shooting that scene. It's so funny. You're talking about a guy who's not a Star Wars fan at all and having the time of his life shooting a Star Wars film show. It's an amazing juxtaposition. So, but anyways,
that fight scene, there's so much happening in this that I just can't let go of. Like, first and foremost, like you said, the lesson he learned from Obi-Wan, in that, like, all right, let me not be too aggressive in this. It is clearly on display, but also it kind of mirrors, and this is from the Clone Wars TV show, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, but it's been 15 years, so that's time's up. It's when Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress like attacks like the Emperor, and he is just spanking on them. They just don't stand a chance against this old guy with a cane. He is just duking on them, and I'm like, when you watch it, you're like, oh, Darth Maul and his brother are like clearly two powerful Force users, and they are, like, for sure, they're Jedi killers, but they're not the Emperor. They're not Darth Sidious at all. And like, as powerful as any of the Inquisitors are, they're just not Darth Vader. They're not Sith, and they're certainly not the Chosen One. And Darth Vader's power level is so much more clearly powerful. It almost makes me question what his intentions for Reva are. I do agree with you. I think there was an intention. I think him stabbing her was intentional and leaving her alive. But this is the second time he's done that. He could have just cut her head off. He could have. He knew the Grand Inquisitor was alive. He knew that Reva had stabbed the Grand Inquisitor because the Grand Inquisitor probably told him. Because the Grand Inquisitor's not a Sith. He doesn't want the Vader's job. But like, they've had a mini rivalry, but ultimately he works for Vader. So like, one, Vader knows that Reva is probably not on his side. Two, Vader's learning and getting stronger already. 3, Obi-Wan had to get out of there immediately because he was going to for sure be killed. They would have not stood a chance against Darth Vader. It's like a 10-to-5 ratio of ability. It's not close. Just a crazy fight scene. Like the fact, I like that he's just like he's just like toying with like boop, 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 and like just pushing her around because he doesn't have to do anything. He could just push her to the ground and kill her. It's not a challenge. It's just interesting to see. It's because he's in this mask, you don't know his intentions. So it's interesting to see like, I wonder what's happening. You're literally guessing like what is happening.
No, agreed.
Before I go to you, Anabelle, I have like this crazy, I don't know, crazy thought. So how old was Anakin when Order 66 happened? Was he 18?
23.
23.
He's 9 in Phantom Menace when he builds C-3PO. So 10
Okay.
years.
And how old was Reva?
Reva was a youngling.
So she's like 10?
Former apprentice, yeah. So about 10, but below 13.
Okay. So there's like a 10-year difference. I don't see why there wouldn't be like a love interest type of relationship.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, no.
And not Darth. He doesn't have anything from the waist down. So like he's like,
yeah. He ain't feeling that. Literally,
he's not. He got nothing. He's got nothing to offer except the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Okay. Anabelle, go ahead.
I had a question, which I'm sure Matt can answer. When does Anakin, Vader, I guess, learn about Luke and Leia? Do we know?
So that'd be episode probably 5, I think. Episode 4, he doesn't really know, and they wrote episode 4 like he wasn't their father. Yeah.
Okay.
So for episode 5, that's when they determined that he was a father, and they made that canonical. So in that movie, I think
But
towards the end,
he only knew about Luke. I don't think he
only
knew
knows about
about
Luke.
Leia until Return of the Jedi.
That's correct. Yeah, he learns about
So,
Leia, but
Return of
that's
the
also when
Jedi-
Luke learns. So
Correct. And that's when Luke learns too. So
they just don't
Okay.
know.
Because
Except-
they keep throwing it around, like that's why I definitely don't think Reba is dead, because they really gave her that information right there. They're like,
Exactly.
oh, he's gonna, if he finds out about the children, and I was like, okay, she's coming back.
Yeah.
She's coming back for sure. And then also we get that shot of Luke at the very end, so I'm like very interested to see how the finale plays out, because I don't even know what to expect, but I'm expecting everyone to show up.
Yeah,
I'm stoked. I'm stoked for you guys to see the finale. If it's as crazy as I saw it on set, that's gonna be awesome. I have some fun stories about that too. But I was just gonna add, for some reason I felt like the Grand Inquisitor looked a little bit more menacing in this episode. Like
That's
he
it,
just
little-
looked like a little bit more like, I'm like, oh man, he looks scarier. Like what?
Yes.
I mean, could have been the lighting and everything, but I just really love how like sadistic he seemed, a little bit more sadistic, and I don't know. I mean, obviously people who knew the Clone Wars understand that he was never dead, but and Rebels, excuse me.
Rebels,
So but he's just looking more sadistic. Look at him. Like
I actually think this is one of those elements of filmmaking, well, I guess television making, but that you can't reflect in writing. Like I can write this as much as I want to and make it as menacing as I want to, but can you pause it right here? It's this shot. It's the fact that you're looking up from the ground, so you're already. This is screen mat. This is just screen making. Like, this is just when you're filming. Like you're looking up, so already they have domineering poses. 2, you have a contextual comparison, and so that's when you put a character that you are very familiar with on screen next to a character you know little about. You start to assume things about the character you know nothing about based on the people they're around. So like while you do know a little about the Grand Inquisitor, you know a whole bunch about Darth Vader, and so seeing them next to each other, you can already make that comparison. You're like, oh, he's clearly a problem. And he's like been in the episodes before. So like what made this one crazy was that like 1, he came back. 2, his armor looked crazier. It looked really slick. Like his armor looked very clean. And he was just next to Vader in that upward shot. It just made him look like a complete monster.
yeah.
My question is, go ahead, Eddie.
No, go ahead. I talked a lot.
My question is like, how do you know if someone dies or not in Star Wars? Like, do you need
to see it.
to have their head?
You
You need to have their head chopped off. so
You
that-
have to watch their soul leave their body for you to know they're dead. If you fall down a tube or get cut in half, you're not dead in Star Wars. It's just not happening. Look at the assassin in The Mandalorian. What is that actor's name?
What's her name? Yeah.
Fennec?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Literally took her insides and were like, all right, carve her out. Thundercat's on the job. Like, let's just give her some robot parts. Very easy. The Grand Inquisitor, you know he has robot parts. You saw him get stabbed with a lightsaber. That's plasma. That's doing damage. You don't get the same body parts. You got to change things up. The robot time. Luckily, the Star Wars universe has great cybernetics, so we just keep rolling.
I'd be remiss if I didn't point out like this is probably the only thing that I was a little bit like, oh, come on. And that was Leia somehow knowing what to do.
To open the door. Mhm.
Yeah.
No.
And here's the thing. I know she's a Skywalker, and I know that. I get that, but she couldn't even fix her own toy. She had Obi-Wan fix it. So excuse me, plot hole. And I know, and Mac, and I know you would defend it to the end of the earth, but you cannot defend that.
That was it. You used my excuse. She's a Skywalker. Oh,
Yeah,
her father built her.
But early on, she couldn't fix her what's her thing called?
Lola, yeah.
Yeah, Lola. And she couldn't fix Lola when she was broken, or when it was broken. And I'm just like, oh, but you know the intricacies of opening this door that you've never seen before, and wiring, and you know that this little tool, all you got to do is just stick it in there and then open it. Now here's the thing: this is extremely nitpicky, and I fully am aware of that. And I love little Leia. I will die for her. Vivian was amazing on set, and we had a little birthday party thing for her on set. It was wonderful. She's adorable. But I just cannot forgive the fact that she couldn't fix Lola. Like, are you kidding me? And then, oh my God, I can fix this intricate door thing. Let me just climb up there in the vents. And anyway.
And all it took was someone saying, like, when you get up there, look for this, turn it, take it out, whatever.
Exactly.
That's one line, and it would have been no issue.
Here's what it looks like, like.
Yep. All they said was it's some red something. And I was like,
breaker box.
Okay, and do what with it?
Use the Force. I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, it is a little silly, but I mean, that is always going to be the fallback. It's like she is a Skywalker, so like she could probably do it.
Such an easy fallback.
It's such an easy fallback. It's such an easy fallback. I mean, her father. I mean, Anakin built C-3PO by the age of 9. Like,
no, fair enough.
That's crazy. He was
but
pod
she's
racing.
Not Anakin.
She's not Anakin. No, she's not. No, she's not. It is a little silly. They could, and it's one of those things, like, as a writer, like, you have to be very cognizant of these little errors, because for non-traditional watchers, non-regular people like y'all and us, like, you're looking for that. You're gonna notice you're gonna pick right up on that. And it's something that's so easy to fix. Like, she could have been like, Lola, how do I do this? And Lola was like, do, and then it's done. That was the dialogue.
Mhm.
Exposition's filled. You don't need to hear all the words. Like, she told her. That's it. But it just.
And I love that. And I love that they gave her like something to actively do, like to actually contribute. I love that she wasn't passive in that sense.
Yes.
She was like just give me a ladder. I'm like, ooh, okay. So I love that. And Obi-Wan's like, or I think Rogan says, oh, well, you don't trust me, and she's like, and Obi-Wan's like, oh, I trust her, or something like that, if that's the line that goes. I'm like, okay, I love that, so but anyway, that was like one of my few nitpicks. And one other very small nitpick. This is even more of a nitpick than nitpicks. The opening scene when we're looking at Coruscant, it looks, it looks Legend Dead.
It is not one ship in the sky.
I mean, they're like streamlined, but they're really small. So they look like birds almost.
Oh.
So there's not a lot of life in Coruscant in the opening scene. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
You brought this up in the last review, and I meant to talk about it, but I completely agree with you. And I noticed this in episode 2, I believe. At this point, I'd already noticed it. But there's like no aliens in this show, aside from like the proud Imperial guy and a couple of background characters. Like a lot of most Espa, I believe, was very human. And I was like, wait a minute. And
except
then
Dayu.
Except Dayu.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Dayu did a very good job. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. That's what Star Wars looks like. Is like, Dayu was one of the best constructed Star Wars worlds they've shown us in these TV shows. Like, just because of the amount of detail and the amount of things that was happening, and like the Arbesh on the walls was legitimate words of like, this is a food, this is a laundromat, this is where you get your drugs. Like, it tells you things. And so I just feel like that's not always reflected in every single episode. And I don't even know if you can. Like Dayu looked incredible. Incredible. Like, a living, breathing world. And then you go to places like Tatooine again, and we're like, oh, no aliens, just humans. And you're on Coruscant, the skyline, wonderful, no ships. And it's like every time we see Coruscant, there are literally millions of ships all out the sky. You can't avoid them. Like one of the major chase scenes is
maybe
flying around these ships.
Maybe it was a Sunday. Yeah, maybe
that's what it was. The post doesn't run.
Yeah, so I'll give it that.
Space Sunday.
Exactly.
Space Mail Day.
For me, like one of the scenes I also didn't buy was when Tala sacrificed herself. I felt it was like, just go, leave me. Like one of those. It happened too quick. Like this episode was how long? 38 minutes.
This was a 43-minute episode.
What, really?
I thought it was like 31.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
40.
40. Okay.
Oh, credits. Sorry.
Yeah. So it was 40 minutes. Like, Jude, you could have added Jude or Gal. You could have added like a couple of more build-ups for some of the scenes that we were talking about. Like you had space to do that.
It's so funny when you speak about Hala, right? That's her name.
Tala.
I'm sorry.
Tala.
Yeah. Like her. I believed her death, just not the setup of it.
The setup, yeah.
Like because when she died, I got a little emotional because she clearly was very emotional about her robot, too, and that got to me. And I saw her like face just completely just deteriorate, and she sacrificed herself, and I love that. And that made me disappointed because like she gave a phenomenal performance for that scene, but the setup could have been a little bit more tense build up, and again, stormtroopers missed a lot.
And there were so many of them.
They were
just
small hallways,
shooting at the walls and hoping the ricochet would get them. I'm like,
just
what are you
coming
doing?
in, and I was like, okay.
And that's the thing I loved about Rogue One. When you look at Rogue One, like there were stakes that were real, like with people literally losing lives and stuff like that. And I know this is a children's show, technically speaking, but it's not too. I mean, yes and no. Watch me never get hired by Lucasfilm. I'm just kidding, Lucasfilm. I love you. I'm literally wearing a shirt, but no, it was just one of those things where sometimes you got to see the stakes a little bit more, and you kind of have to feel that because we know what happens already. Like in terms of, we know Obi-Wan gonna survive, we know Vader's not gonna die, so there's some stakes that you have to build in from other characters' point of views, so that was it's a if I ever get the blessing and opportunity to ever write a show for Lucasfilm, for Star Wars, like first of all, I'd be so grateful. And even if they tell me like, Eddie, sorry, we're gonna have to change all this, that's fine. At least I tried. At least I tried. And I love the fact that I get bragging rights that I get to write a Star Wars episode or a show, so
tattoo the screenplay under your legs.
Listen, man, anything
Never
is
forget.
possible. Oh, absolutely. But yeah, but no, overall, I love this episode. It was a fantastic episode.
I have a question before we wrap up. How do you all feel about the British accent of Evan McGregor and Tala? As Americans, how do you feel about it when you hear it? Because for me, like, it sounds, what's the word? Formal. It doesn't sound like they're giving me like. Now again, we learned in linguistics, by the way, that the accent doesn't mean anything. It's just the way a person talks. It doesn't have any specific meaning. So it's not like you can criticize or say something or have an idea about someone through their accent. But I wonder how you as Americans view it when you hear their British accent. Because for me, it shouldn't, but subconsciously it was giving me this formal setting. So yeah, I'm interested to know your opinions about it.
Which British accent, like Ewan's or
McGregor and Tala? Yeah.
So McGregor he's Scottish. Yeah. So his accent is actually way different. The accent they have is actually Star Wars time. It's actually a Coruscanti accent. That's like the accent of the planet. So like Tala may very well be from Coruscant because she has a very similar accent to Obi-Wan. If you notice, Princess Amidala also has a very has a British almost accent, but it's not. It's just because she's from a core world where they speak very proper. They're often in the Senate floor, so it's not really that surprising. I guess I'm not more surprised. I assume Leia should also have an accent almost like that, but she's from Alderaan, so it kind of makes sense.
Interesting tidbit, Mac. Appreciate that.
Coruscant, yeah. Han Solo has a Corellian accent.
Yes.
He talks like this, and he hits his last words, and it hits.
Wait,
so
y'all
it's just
see
Harrison Ford.
I love Harrison. We have the same birthday. Did you know that? July 13th, Harrison Ford.
How did you know
That's
that?
Amazing.
I googled it. Guess what day I got engaged on?
Oh, okay.
May 14th. Guess whose birthday that is?
Hamill?
George Lucas.
Oh, George Lucas. I love that.
As
I
you
love that
should.
minded.
As you
Yes.
should.
Yes.
I'm consistent. I'm a nerd, but I'm a consistent nerd.
There you go.
So the characters' accents are part of the story,
Diegetic.
and
correct.
you actually and you as native English speakers, you are able to differentiate that between like a typical British accent. Because for me, they were sounding the same. That's why.
I think Americans, with the way we speak English, we hear British and we think of it as like proper English, almost like, oh, it's fancy English. But like our accent is actually developed from that accent. If you listen to like Creole accents, or you listen to like really Midwestern accents, or even Californians have accents. I'm from Georgia, so like a lot of my family has a deep Southern accent, and they sound like this, and we talk to each other, and you see the tilt the corner of my mouth, and it's easier for us just to communicate. It's just a lot of whys and a lot of twanging. But like, I mean, I don't have an accent typically, but I mean, I would in Star Wars. I'd have something. Yeah, I don't think the accent sounds too weird, just because it's not overbearing.
It's weird. I'm just saying how it came up. I'm just wondering your take on it. Yeah, that's why. Anybody want to add anything?
No, can't wait for the next episode.
Oh yeah, can't wait to finale. All right, thank you everyone. We'll see y'all next week with our amazing filmmaker, and can't wait all to talk about the finale with you. See y'all.